The court assembled beneath brittle banners and towers that caught the pale twin sun like glass teeth. There was always ceremony for beginnings on Zilari, always the sharp edge to every welcome. Pastel banners, braided gold in the morning air, hid the truth. Today's festivities were not for union, but for surrender. Princess Cerise knew the script as certainly as she knew the rhythm of her own pulse. She was the jewel of the second dynasty of Zilari, vowed to an alliance through treaty, presented to her people as both promise and warning. The crowd expected a bride who would save them from war. Cerise had never shown them anything else until now. He arrived late, of course. Humans were always late, she was told, as if delay were an element on their periodic table. He came up the steps alone, his formal tunic bearing the wrong insignia, a slip too subtle for most. But Cerise saw and understood. The human, Corin Hell, son of no one important, official observer on loan to Zilari for cultural exchange, was not what he claimed. She met him on the landing. Up close, he was a blend of nerve and calculation, eyes scanning details, flag positions, guard patterns, exits. The smile he offered was pure ambassador, practice over warmth. Your Highness. He bowed, just enough to be polite, less than the local habit. Corin Hale, she acknowledged, voice low and inflected with Zalari's courtly reserves. Welcome to the end of the world. He straightened, a flicker of something real behind his eyes at the phrase. I was told this would be the dawn of a new era. In our tongue, those are the same, she replied. They walked together into the kaleidoscope light from the archive dome, every angle designed to awe outsiders and to filter what could be seen on the floor. Above their heads, dignitaries clustered, each more intent on advantage than friendship. High Prince Terak, her uncle, eyed Corin as he would a puzzle lock. No trust, only curiosity. Behind him, matriarchs scrawled predictions in gold dust. The king's voice boomed, names and titles tumbling in a torrent of ritual. It hardly mattered. As Cerise and Corin advanced, the archive's lattice lit with their steps retina scanners, proof of entry. Protocol dictated she introduce him to the assembly. Corin, envoy of Solaria, friend to peace, guest of honor. He kept the mask, bowed again. But the archive also flashed a signal, visible only at princess level. Unauthorized data request. Crypto 121, sent via human Diplo net. She watched the color shift over his chest and then fade. A spy then. Perhaps her first. She kept her expression serene. You seem uncomfortable. It's a remarkable place. It plays tricks on the eyes. His gaze slid away from her toward the glass throne at the dome's heart. He wasn't here for alliance or friendship. Cerise allowed herself a flicker of amusement. All true things are tricks to someone. Their private introductions ended quickly. The ceremony proceeded. Toasts, recitations, a prayer for the union. All expected, all untrue at the root. Corin performed well, blending in, laughing at the correct moments, feigning unfamiliarity with Zilari customs, so persuasively that one noblewoman nearly took him for a stammering academic, not an agent. Yet later, in the gardens after dusk, where real deals were struck in shadow, she approached him again. You're out of place. He hesitated, weighing lies. I'm still learning. I know what you are, she said. He didn't flinch. Then you should have me arrested. You'd expect that, she whispered. Everyone in that dome would expect it. That's not how I intend to win. Corin's eyes searched hers, wary and strangely hopeful. Then what? She stepped closer. You'll confess to me eventually, because you need something only I can offer, and just maybe because you want to. Before he could answer, alarms rang through the archive. Guards ran. A breach, someone shouted. The crowd panicked, dignitaries scattering. Cerise turned to Corin. Stay by my side and follow my lead. If you run, you won't make it 10 meters. If you help, I'll see if I can trust you tomorrow. He nodded once, urgency overriding calculation, and already, in that hurried alliance, something unlikely began. The breach, she discovered, was internal hacked protocols, the archive doused in pulses of false data. Panic painted the throne room in smear and silence. Dignitaries funneled to emergency exits, masked soldiers scrambling, the king howling for security. Cerise, still beside Corin, gestured for him to stay close, then took charge with the clipped authority she wore as armor. Lock down the southern wings, she commanded 2 guards. Clear civilians out of the botanical labs. and no weapons drawn unless I say. Corin didn't wait for orders. As she coordinated soldiers, he slipped to a disabled node near the archive center, hands flying fast and precise over its input fields. It's not sabotage someone is siphoning credential data, he murmured under breath, angling the panel so she could see. If they finish the hack, they'll get access to command permissions. So the true enemy wasn't here, but watching through glass and code, using the confusion to strike deeper. Cerise felt a cold resolve take hold. Prevent the upload. I'll secure the command uplink. Their pairing went unnoticed in the chaos. Princess and outsider seemingly acting on separate authority, but in truth working as a matched set. Corin rerouted node traffic, rewriting encryptions with confident desperation she'd only seen in her own most skilled engineers. Cerise ordered a recce of her own credentials, pinning command fallback to her genetic profile, an act that would either save the palace or render her sole scapegoat if things failed. Done, Corin whispered, just as a ring of palace guards closed in. One senior officer barked, "Step away from that terminal, human." Cerise moved smoothly between them. It was my order. His expertise prevented a catastrophic breach. She used her royal code to validate his access, bluffing past both custom and protocol. Detain anyone else who interferes. We must finish sanitizing the archive before the hour closes. Rumor spread swiftly. The princess had sided with the human to save the palace. Whispers flickered through the ranks: suspicion, awe, betrayal. Cerise ignored them, her focus on the crisis, on Corin, on what this alliance was quickly becoming. When the palace was finally secured, the head technician approached her privately. "You took a risk, Your Highness." He could have destroyed everything. Corin, still bruised with suspicion, answered before she could. "If I had, you'd know it already." Cerise regarded him for a long moment. "You could have, but you didn't. Why?" He was silent, wrestling with the unspoken. "Because you saw me, before you caught me. Because you let me help, even knowing what I am." She turned away first, staring at the rebuilt archive. "What you are is still in question. But tonight, you were who I needed." Their alliance, however uneasy, had found a crack in the world through which trust might grow. And just outside the shattered protocol of her people's court, under the twin suns bleeding toward night, Cerise made a choice. She would learn the extent of Corin's deception, but she would decide, for herself and against her entire world, whether such a lie was worth loving. This was how a story began, with a mask, a near betrayal, and the first taste of loyalty from someone who had every reason to run. Corin spent the night in a palace cell, with only his own thoughts for company and the sound of glass waves striking steel above him. He was not treated as an enemy only, as a problem too complex for protocol. His door remained unlocked, but the guards outside were chosen for patience, not leniency. The archive had recorded everything he knew: his access, his code rewrites, the failure to erase every trace of his interference. He had committed to a side, and now that side might demand payment he was afraid to give. He measured options in the dark, recalling the first mission orders he'd received: infiltrate, gain trust, destabilize the archive security. His target had been Zelleri's network, not its princess, and certainly not the strange, stubborn woman who had let him stand beside her as a would-be ally. Consular training dictated what to hide and what to forget, but training had not prepared him for a night when mercy felt heavier than guilt. In the morning, Cerise arrived with no escort, just the pale light curling under her cloak and the sense that she had already decided the next move. "You slept?" she asked, voice level, challenging. "Barely." She accepted that, stepping inside and motioning to the guards who left silently, a show of trust to both parties. "You have two paths, Corin. Confess and I can use you, or resist and I will have to break you." He weighed the offer, searching her face for pity, but finding only resolution. "There's more than one kind of use." "That," she replied, "is precisely why I need to know what you were sent for." He was silent, then, unable to summon even the most basic lie. At last, "A data core, your archive. The Solarian Council wanted root codes for access. It was my job to get them to prove your dynasty's security wasn't as perfect as you promised." She closed her eyes, not angry, only tired. "And what did you actually give them?" He shook his head. "Nothing. The breach yesterday, someone else, maybe a rival faction. My orders changed after I met you. I kept feeding the council minor system flaws. Nothing real. I stalled as long as I could. She studied him, and he saw something shift a crack in the usual mask of royal expectation. Why? A word she whispered, the question that had haunted nights in both their lives. You could have destroyed us. You could still. Is this because of me? Corrin let truth shape him. For once, you offered me trust before you had proof. I wanted it to be true, so I gave Solaria only the lies they expected nothing you couldn't fix in a week. That, and he faltered, not trained for honesty. I admired you. Admiration isn't immunity, she whispered. He nodded. No, but it's the only defense I have left. They sat in silence, the cell more confessional than prison. Cerise asked, if I let you walk out, what then? Will you run back to your people? Will you stand with me? He answered without thinking. I'll stand with you if you'll have me, even if none of them forgive me. She did not smile. She only said, then you'll have to prove it. In public, where every eye can see, not beside me against me, until you've earned this place. He nodded, knowing what she meant. Later that day, in the Great Hall, she summoned the full council. Corrin was presented as witness and as traitor, a man used by foreign interests, unmasked for all to see. The king read from the archive, every flaw and failed safeguard authored by Corrin's nervous hands, every fake breach, every real hesitation. Rumor swelled. He betrayed her. He protected her. He almost destroyed us. Cerise kept her head high, refusing any demand for vengeance. His deception put us at risk, she announced, but our tradition demands justice, not theater. He will earn forgiveness, if he can, through service to Zilari, performed openly, every day. Until my trust is proved correct or my mistake is irreversible, many protested. Tarek, her uncle, declared that letting a traitor remain would invite disaster. Cerise did not yield. I choose who stands beside me. Let the future judge my choice. The hall grew quiet, as those who understood the stakes recognized that Cerise, at last, was writing her own fate, not as dynastic ornament, but as ruler on her own terms. The service of atonement began with humiliation. Corrin was set to the lowest work, reconstructing archive records, encrypting civic documents under the supervision of the royal historian, mending physical seals on gateways to the capital's neural plants. Each task was public performed before citizens, guards, and bitter officials, all of whom watched a foreign spy become a laborer. Pain came not from the work, but from the eyes. Children whispered, "Is that the human who lied?" Merchants scoffed, betting openly on whether he would finish a single week. Some nobles spat as they passed. He did every task as if his life depended on it, which, in some sense, it did. Rhythms of Zilari society pressed close, every error magnified, every hesitation scrutinized for signs of duplicity. But as days passed, a strange new rumor spread. He does not cheat, even under our noses. He takes blame even for mistakes that are not his. Cerise watched from a distance, holding counsel, refusing to intervene, not mercy, but an opportunity for faith to grow visible. Late at night, while repairing security nodes on the outer walls, Corrin found Cerise waiting for him. No guards, only moonlight. "Has any of this changed how you see us?" she asked. "I have seen more truth in adversity than in comfort," he replied. "Your world observes every scar. Your laws allow mistakes to be spoken. I understand now what it means to earn a place here." She stepped beside him, closer than she had ever allowed. "And what do you ask in return for your service, for your confession?" He met her gaze. "Not forgiveness, only a chance to stay." Cerise nodded. "Then tomorrow I will bring you before my family and before those who decide my fate. You will defend yourself, and I will defend my right to choose who I trust, even if it costs me my name." She paused, cautious and brave. "If you fail, you will be exiled. If I fail, I will join you." The words saturated the silence. Here were two destinies running parallel, tested by tradition, rivalry, trust, and betrayal, drawing toward a crossroads from which neither could turn back. Corrin returned to his cell, no longer as a prisoner, but as the subject of a choice powerful enough to break a dynasty. And as twin suns reappeared over the horizon, Cerise prepared to face a world that would ask her to justify not just her rule, but her heart. The Hall of Reckoning was built for drama. Beneath arches patterned with the histories of every dynasty, Cerise faced a council more brutal for its intimacy than any mob. Only a dozen delegates, aunts, rivals, scholars, generals. The king with his exhausted rage. Sunlight filtered through the archive lattice, painting shifting daggers on the floor. Corin entered under escort and heavy scrutiny. His hands were bare, his tunic plain. There was no ceremonial mask, no dignity for traitors. Outsiders, Solarians, and visiting dignitaries filled the upper galley, whispering, tallying debts and outcomes on digital slips. No one in the chamber was neutral. Cerise addressed the assembly first, voice unwavering. You know the facts. You have seen the records. By tradition, I must now defend my judgment, why I trust one who conspired against us, why I offer not vengeance, but labor and the chance for belonging. If you doubt my rule, challenge it here. If you doubt my heart, doubt it now. Tarek, ever the antagonist. Rose, your highness, your naivete is legend even on other worlds. This human risked everything, our codes, our safety for his counsel's gain. Mercy here is not justice. Mercy is an invitation for future spies. The words stung because they echoed the unspoken chorus. A ruler, wounded by affection, putting dynasty second. In the traditional form, Corin bowed to the assembly. His accent was careful, measured. I cannot undo my choices, but I can declare them. I came as a spy. I lied, and when I saw what truth lived here, when I saw Cerise willing to act with courage, beyond custom, I chose to sabotage my own mission. It was not loyalty to Zelari at first, but to her trust, her challenge. You can exile me, you can brand me a fool, but you know what I've done. And if the next agent comes, they will know you are watched not only by warriors, but by those who question their own orders. Whispers pulsed, a smattering of respect barely audible, but there, among the fury, a young matriarch stood. Princess, you trust your own heart, but will you trust it against ours? If we exonerate this foreigner, we undermine the law that once kept us sovereign. If we exile him, we risk losing you. How do you weigh love against nation? Cerise answered plainly, I have never asked for mercy for him. I ask for the right to make a future, not just for myself, but for anyone who might belong here by the shape of their actions, not the accident of their blood. Justice is not only the rules we enforce, it is the family we choose to build. A hush. Even the king could not hide the doubt and the hope. Corin was given a final chance to speak. If your law cannot accept someone who tried to destroy it, learned to defend it, and now seeks to serve it, then exile me. If your law grows by forgiveness and risk, then let me work until I've paid back every hour stolen. I cannot offer promises, only resolve. A debate stormed among the elders. Votes cast, recalled, and rephrased. For every argument to cast Corin into the void, another noted how his confession had prevented disaster, how his ordeal had become a test for Cerise's leadership. At last, the king rose, his face torn by pride and sorrow. We are not so strong that we can discard those who are willing to change, nor so weak that we fear even the most terrible honesty. Princess Cerise, your judgment prevails for now. The sentence. A decade of monitored service. No weapons, no archive codes without dual oversight. Cerise would be held accountable for his conduct. If he failed, her fate would be tied to his in exile. The world saw a princess risking everything out of love, faith, or folly. The aftermath was not celebration, but relief as sharp as teeth. Corin kept his head down, working from dawn to dusk. In his new role, public servant, cultural advisor, technical asset, he became both symbol and warning. Some cheered his endurance. Some threw insults at his feet. But each day, a few more saw in him not a spy, but a man learning the weight of belonging. For Cerise, scrutiny never relented. Hidden cliques whispered about her recklessness. The archive's analysts filed daily risk reports that detailed not just Corin's actions, but her own every choice for openness, every policy favoring cross-caste unity. Yet the court could not ignore the stability growing around her, not the easy harmony of peace, but a rough-edged understanding that respected challenge, debate, and even failure. One evening, near the archive dome, Cerise found Corin working alone. She studied him, hair damp from rain, hands bleeding from repairs. You're not trying to impress anyone anymore, only yourself. Corin smiled wryly. You're the only one who ever saw through me. The rest stopped looking. It's because you stopped hiding, she said, and because you forced us all, to see ourselves without the armor we used to wear. He looked up, voice steadier. Every day here, I know you risk everything to keep me, to keep this world broad enough for truth and lies to kneel together. Cerise stepped closer. Every world has its deceivers and its believers. The ones who build something better are those who learn to be both and still choose trust. You made that choice, knowing my world might never forgive you. I'll make mine, knowing I may never be forgiven either. He laughed softly, the sound small and unguarded. You're not afraid? Of what? She whispered. Of losing my place? I never had one, not until I decided to claim it. For the first time, she let him take her hand. Unafraid of the archive, the king, or the world beyond the lattice windows. In that silent, glass-lit moment, she and Corin became more than rumor and scandal. They became a precedent. Their fingers, threaded together, set history on a path that could not be erased, a future rewritten, where truth wasn't weakness and betrayal, could become the foundation for something more honest, more human than either world had believed possible. The first weeks of Corin's public service saw no softening of suspicion. Saboteurs tested his resolve, slipping corrupt data requests into the network he maintained, accusing him of letting Solari's enemies in through unwatched gates. Cerise, meanwhile, was attacked with words sharper than blades, traitor to blood, ruined by human weakness, bringing shame to the dynasty for a single spy's comfort. At council, a faction led by her uncle Tarek lobbied to strip her title and annul every policy she'd inspired. One night, returning to quarantine tower duty, Corin found his station in Chaos Archive access logs scrambled, 2 junior staffers in tears. Who did this? He demanded, scanning the logs. It was Masked Command, a tech sobbed. Someone tried to dump the whole neural registry into the Solarian embassy cache under your ID. It was an obvious trap. Instantly, every finger pointed to the easiest scapegoat. Guards hustled him into a holding chamber. Within minutes, the news was spreading. The human betrayed us again. Before a verdict could be rendered, Cerise stormed into the council, archive credentials in hand. I demand full analysis, she insisted. This hack doesn't match his code. Check the echo signatures from the embassy link. Give me one unbiased observer, and I'll prove this is Tarek's work. The king hesitated, torn between law and blood. He eyed Corin with cold calculation, then nodded. You may present evidence. If your claim fails, both of you will be exiled. No second chance. Cerise and a single archive moderator pulled the access patterns apart line by line, mapping vector and signature. Corin, locked in the witness cell, coached her through the code via stat string, his voice and fingerprints visible on every move. The sabotage planted by Tarek's own sons was revealed. The royal council chamber, breathless, watched Cerise lay out the truth. In the aftermath, Tarek was demoted, his allies publicly censured, but the damage had been deeper. A council now saw Cerise would defy her own family for the sake of justice. Her enemies retreated, but the price was clear. She and Corin existed at the mercy of a society eager to watch them fail. That night, alone atop the archive dome, they looked out over a restless city. You could leave, Cerise said softly. You could start over on a world where none of them ever knew your name. Corin shook his head. I won't abandon you to the cost of my redemption. And you could have left me to fate. Instead, you risked even your own crown. She studied him, smile fragile but real. When I was a girl, I believed loyalty was indestructible. I was wrong. Loyalty is a choice you remake each time the world tries to undo it. He traced echoes of her words, voice trembling with gratitude and fear. And I'll keep choosing you. Every time, rumors of exile grew, fanned by old enemies. A slow exodus began. Some courtiers vanished en retreat, while security details quietly reassigned themselves away from the palace core. Among the working caste, though, a new current sparked. Word spread that the princess, once a symbol of untouchable tradition, had stood in the data vault beside the enemy, facing down the most powerful men in her house. One afternoon, a council split was announced. The king would step aside for healing, naming a regency made of senators from both conservative and reformist ranks. Cerise was offered the ceremonial position of Unity Minister, a title with no power, meant to sideline her quietly while she lost the hearts of the people. Instead, Cerise appeared on the archive steps and addressed the capital herself. "This office without power is a cage built from custom," she declared, tone clear as metal. "But the law that built it cannot hold all of us. I will not endanger my home with civil war, but I will not watch others be exiled or erased so you can sleep easy in old habits." For the first time, she spoke as a leader with nothing left to lose. "I choose love. I choose the trust I have already tested with fire and grief. I choose to stay with the one who risked his life to earn even a fraction of my world's forgiveness, because I see in him a better future, and in myself the courage to attempt it." Crowds gathered, expectant. Some cheered, others stood stunned. A princess renouncing comfort, a human offering service that had become sacrifice. That night, Cerise and Corin met as fugitives, not running, but walking openly through markets where rumors lived. Their presence changed the city, as courage sometimes does. A few followed in support, a few left offerings, and those who feared change kept silent, letting the moment pass. They returned not to the palace, but to a safe house on the city's edge. There, Cerise vowed, we are no longer princess and spy. We're seeds rebels if we must be, partners if we're allowed. The world will remember us for what we build, or for what we force it to question. Corin took her hand. Let the world choose its judgment. We'll choose each other, and see which story survives. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and deeply alive, built not on lies or loyalty alone, but on a love willing to withstand the judgment of every world. The days that followed Cerise's defiant speech were a storm of consequences. The city simmered, crowds at the gates, rumors flashing through the squares like fire chasing wind. Messages from distant colonies arrived, some with support, a princess who chooses for herself, and some laden with condemnation. Through it all, the Regency pressed its plan: divide public sentiment, freeze accounts, brand Cerise and Corin not as outcasts, but as incipient traitors to Zelleri's peace. A curfew order came down. Anyone seen associating with the defectors after dusk would face sanctions. The city, used to watching from a distance, was forced to pick sides. Corin saw the tightening net. Friends of their safe house began to disappear. One, an old gardener who had once defended Cerise to the council. Another, a merchant who had supplied them with food. At night, drones patrolled. Whispered warnings met them wherever they turned. Leave now. You won't survive this time. Cerise refused. This is where we force their hand. If they want to take away my name, let them do it in the open. When the moment came, it was as public as the archive steps, but colder. The Regency convened a special trial, its purpose clear from the start: to erase Cerise's claim to the throne, to humiliate her bond with the human who had deceived the realm. The gallery was full, packed with those who wished to see justice or vengeance in real time. The regent read aloud, "You have rejected the counsel of your elders. You have elevated a deceiver to companionship. We offer you one chance. Renounce all claims to power. Renounce your traitor, or be stripped of rank and exiled without recourse." Eyes turned to Cerise, demanding a performance. She stood, unadorned and calm. "You offer a false choice. My power was not yours to give, and his loyalty was not mine to command. I will not renounce what I have fought to understand." Corin stood, shoulders squared, refusing the old shame. "If you exile her, do so for loving someone who chose her, even when he had every reason not to. I regret my deception, but I do not regret her." The Regency signed the order, exiled both immediately. The weight of the archive's gaze, its silent witness, hung heavy. Yet neither Cerise nor Corin faltered as they walked from the hall, met by a swell of silent respect from some and averted eyes from others. Outside, the city revealed its true colors. Those who believed in the old law shunned them. Others, emboldened, offered silent aid tokens, maps, a cup of water, a place to hide. The world was no longer divided along blood or custom, but along choice, those who feared the future and those willing to live in it. That first night as exiles, Cerise and Corin moved through back alleys to the city's Veil Gate, where Zelleri's border vanished into desert. As the gate opened, Cerise paused, touching one of the great engraved columns. The names of every princess, every hero who belonged to the world she was now leaving. "I am not renouncing who I was," she whispered. "I'm claiming what I've chosen to become." Corin set his hand beside hers. "If this is exile, then let it be our beginning, not just an ending." They moved on, stepping into new country as the darkness melted toward dawn. Behind them, on the other side of the veil, people argued in council about the threat, the scandal, the lost princess. But in the space between one world and the next, Cerise and Corin found freedom heavy with risk and light with promise. Word spread quickly. The princess had left for the sake of a human who'd broken the law, then rebuilt it beside her. The city could not quite decide whether it should mourn or envy them. In marketplaces, stories changed shape. She loved a traitor, but made him true. He was a liar, but he faced the truth for her. They broke the world, but they did not flee alone. Exile was not silence. It was the beginning of a new myth one that grew at the edges of Zilari, bringing misfits, outcasts, and the hopeful to join the pair who had chosen love over certainty, truth over comfort, and a destiny that no one could write for them but themselves. Their first home was small, just beyond reach of the old regime, but it was alive with the possibility of all the stories Zilari had tried to suppress. As the suns rose over a world that had lost a princess and gained something braver, Cerise and Corin laid the foundation of a life that would earn, not demand, forgiveness, one uncertain day at a time. Exile was not absence, it was invention. Cerise and Corin's days became a choreography of adaptation, finding water, coaxing crops from unfriendly soil, building shelter in a landscape that had no memory of princesses or spies. They were alone, but not unanswered. At dusk, refugees from both sides of the old order would arrive. Dissidents, failed nobles, scientists who had questioned too loudly, families whose ties had snapped under the weight of old laws. Cerise welcomed them not as ruler, but as host. The rule here is what we build, not what we inherit, together. They put up houses with council rooms, kitchens without hierarchy, jury benches where anyone could stand. Corin set up security nets, rudimentary but honest, and taught newcomers to keep records of mistakes as carefully as they celebrated wins. They married unofficially, no crown, no archive, no parade, only a circle of witnesses and the swift gold light of two alien suns. Some called their settlement Haven, others the crack in the wall. Stories traveled faster than the laws of exile. The princess who made herself ordinary, the human who lied, then stayed true. Rumors grew in both directions. In the city of Zilari, children played at being dissenters and heroes. In Haven, elders dissected the old world, careful to avoid letting new forms of tyranny grow in the gaps. But building something new meant facing the ghosts of what they'd left behind. When the first starvation came, they rationed equally. When a plague threatened Haven, Cerise sent word back to Zilari for aid from doctors, even knowing most would never reply. A few came quietly, risking their standing for the chance to care without permission. Forgiveness, like bread, took work every single day. Sometimes, walking the new streets at night, Corin would ask, "Did we do the right thing?" And Cerise would answer, "We did what no one else dared." That's never the right thing or the wrong one, not until we see if it holds. And it did hold, against storms, shortages, and the ever-present ache for things lost. Haven became the lesson the old world had tried to erase, that those who choose each other in defiance of custom might build the customs and dreams the next generation needs most. Years blurred and sharpened. What began as exile became legend, not in Zilari's official archive, but in the stones, recipes, and songs of those who stayed. Corin became counselor, then equal. Cerise, never again princess, but now first among hands, the one whose word was listened to, but never law. Visitors from Zilari would sometimes come curious, tentative, hoping to understand what had taken root in the place the council now called lost ground. Some judged, some learned, some never returned, unable to accept that the rules here were written by the living, revised by those who dared admit a wrong. New alliances grew. Old enemies arrived seeking amnesty, humbled by events back in Zilari, a famine, the quiet crumbling of authority, elders forced to concede that rigid pride had cost them too dearly. Cerise opened Haven's gates. Bring only your willingness to work, to amend. Leave your rank and rivalries at the border, on a day bright as any before the trial. Cerise sat with Corin beneath the old archive branch, just a fragment, cut and smuggled out by her friend, now root-bound and green with new life. They watched a group of children debate the rules for a ball game, none could agree upon. Do you miss it? Corin asked, voice softer now. The ceremony? She shook her head. I miss the stories I believed about myself, but I'd rather be in the story we chose, messy and unwritten as it is. A messenger from Zelari arrived, a girl trembling with importance, carrying a letter from a new council. We ask your guidance on reconciliation. Haven's coexistence is proof of what's possible. The city needs to learn, not just how to heal, but how to keep from forgetting the wounds. Corin looked to Cerise. Will you help them? She squeezed his hand. Only if they promise never to erase what we did wrong to get here. That evening, through the windows of Haven's council hall, the former princess told stories of her own errors, of mistrust and forgiveness, of the day she chose love, knowing it would cost her everything she'd been promised. She finished, as always, with the line etched into the main gate. Let the next generation decide whose lies became their new truth, and whose truth made space for love. And so, in the shadow of the wall they once ran from, Cerise and Corin forged the only dynasty that mattered. One written in every hand that shaped the world after them, no longer princess nor spy, but the foundation for all those who chose, hoped, and loved out loud, even when the world demanded silence.